The Cat's Tale. "Come on down, Marla," my little brother, Scott, called. "We're telling ghost stories." "No thanks," I shouted back. Then I covered my ears so I wouldn't hear the next blast of thunder. Thunderstorms weren't so loud when my family lived in the city. Here in the country, the lightning flashed so close and the thunder boomed so hard, it shook the house. Last year when I turned 12, my folks decided it would be safer for my brother and me to grow up in the country. So we moved from New York City up here to River Falls. Scott loves living in an old house with a big yard, but not me. I hate it. I miss Central Park. I miss taxis, and most of all, I miss my friends. I listen to the tree branches brush against my windows. I suddenly pictured ghosts trying to claw their way through my window and into my room. I'm not a chicken or anything. I'm not even really afraid of the thunder and the lightning. I just like it better when there isn't any. I gasped as the room went black. Now the only light in my room came from the lightning. With every flash, the trees left frightening shadows on my wall. Downstairs, I could hear my parents and Scott still telling ghost stories in the dark. I wanted no part of that. I couldn't stand the sound of the branches scratching against the glass. I opened the window. Then I felt my way around the room in the darkness. I touched my desk, my chair, my headboard. Oh, I cried as something big, wet and hairy flew through the open window. It slammed into my chest and I fell to the floor. Long, sharp nails scratched at my arms and neck. High-pitched screeches rang in my ear. I stared into two glowing green eyes. Then I started to scream. Mum and Dad bolted into the room. "Marla, what's the matter?" Dad cried. He held a candle in one hand and Scott's Little League bat in the other. "A hairy monster," I shrieked. "It flew into the room and is this the monster?" Mum asked sweetly. She held up the candle so I could see. In her arms, she carried a small, wet, shaking black cat. "It's just a cat, honey," Mum said softly. "She must have climbed up the tree and jumped in here to get out of the storm." She examined the cat. A stray. There's no tags on her neck. "Meow." A loud roar from behind me. I spun around. "Stop it, Scott," I cried. He laughed. "Meow, meow." He thought it was a riot. I ignored him and reached for the cat. My mother placed her in my arms. "You're nice and safe here," I said to the cat. I turned to my parents. "Can I keep her?" Mum and Dad glanced at each other. "Marla, a cat is a big responsibility," my dad began. My face fell. "Please, Dad," I pleaded. "She needs me. She's all alone, and I need her. I have no friends around here." "Well, we'll talk about it in the morning," my mother said. "She can stay tonight. Anyway, come on, Scott. It's bedtime." I petted the black cat. The storm had stopped. The air was filled with a fresh mist. "I think I'll call you Misty," I said, "and don't worry, you'll be able to stay here for life. I'll make sure of it." Misty spent the night curled up at the foot of my bed, and the next morning she did the weirdest thing. She followed me into the shower. Misty purred happily as the hot water pounded on her fur. I always heard that cats hate baths and showers. They keep themselves clean by licking themselves. Not Misty. Misty was special. When we went down to breakfast, we both had wet hair. "I see you two have washed up," my father said. I smiled. Misty also showed her pointy white teeth in a grin. We all laughed when Misty tried to eat my eggs. "You must be hungry, you poor thing," my mother said. She gave Misty a saucer of milk and some tuna. "I've spoiled you now," Mum told Misty. "You'll never go for cat food after that." I knew then that Mum would let me keep Misty. "Kids, I have a great surprise," Mum said excitedly. "I've joined the swim club. You two can bike over there today and take a swim. There will be lots of kids your age there." Scott jumped out of his seat. "All right, a pool right here, and we don't have to take a taxi to a stinking old gym. I love it out here." I frowned at my brother. He was so easy to please. All it took was a few ghost stories and a swimming pool. I still miss New York. But since I was stuck here, meeting some other kids didn't seem like such a bad idea. Besides, I love to swim and the heat wave was starting to get to me. I ran upstairs to put on my swimsuit. Hurry up, Marla, Scott called from the front door. If you're not here in 1 minute, I'm going without you. See you later, Misty, I said, waving. Misty leaped up on my desk and meowed. She sounded so sad, like a baby who had just lost a mother. She cried and cried. I cuddled the cat in my arms and tried to calm her. I know how you feel. I don't like being alone in a new house either, I said, petting her black fur. Then I called downstairs. Hey, Scott, you go on. I think Misty and I are going to hang out here today. At dinner time, Scott told us about the great kids he met at the pool. I felt a little jealous. All I did was read a book while Misty napped. But when I gazed down at Misty, snuggled in my lap, eating pieces of my frankfurter, I knew I had done the right thing. Misty needed me. That night, I dreamed about my old neighbourhood. My friends and I were rowing a boat in the park. We were having a picnic lunch and laughing. Then suddenly, a stranger grabbed me from behind and covered my mouth. I tried to lift my head, but I couldn't. I couldn't breathe. I woke up and I still couldn't breathe. Misty, the cat, was sitting on me, covering my nose and mouth. I tugged at her with all my strength, but I couldn't budge her. I started to feel dizzy and weak. The room spun around me. I struggled to get air into my lungs. I grabbed at Misty's fur, but the cat pressed even harder against my face. Beads of sweat dripped down my forehead. My skin turned cold and clammy. Finally, I curled my hands around Misty's neck. I ripped her off my face and held her far away from my body. Then I gasped in breath after breath, holding the cat tightly. I carried her downstairs to the family room. My parents were watching a video. Mum, Dad, I cried. Misty tried to kill me. What? She tried to kill me. She plopped onto my face. She wouldn't get off. She tried to suffocate me. My mother took Misty from me and petted her back. Marla, Misty was probably just cold. You know how you like to turn the air conditioning up too high. She was just trying to get warm. Maybe what Mum said makes sense. I don't know, but that's when I started to get afraid of the cat. The next day, when Misty started crying again, I ignored her. I locked the front door on my way out, hopped on my bike and took off for the swim club. The club seemed to be a really fun place, and there were lots of kids my age. Scott ripped off his shirt and did a belly flop into the deep end. I took my time climbing the ladder to the high diving board. I was about to dive in. I stared down at the water and stared again. For some reason, I suddenly didn't feel like diving. I began to edge back down the board. I didn't want to go in that water. Hey, Marla, what's your problem? Scott called from the pool. I cut my hands to answer Scott, but I suddenly realized I wasn't the only one on the diving board. Something brushed up against me and scratched my leg. Ow! I screamed out in pain and surprise. I lost my balance. I tumbled into the water below. Cold, blue water poured into my mouth and nose. I thrashed my arms and legs in a panic. I couldn't swim. I struggled to reach the surface, but everything went black. A crowd of people huddled around me. I could hear them congratulating the lifeguard who had jumped in and saved my life. The lifeguard helped me to a lounge chair. He wrapped my cut leg in a towel. "Stay here," he said. "I'll call your parents and get you some bandages for that cut." The blood seeped through the white towel. Ow! That was some cut. Who could have scratched me so badly? Scott raced over to me. I thought he wanted to make sure I was okay, but instead he dumped Misty into my lap. "Mum told you to leave this dumb cat at home," he said. "She followed you all the way up onto the high dive." Mum and Dad showed up a few minutes later and drove me home. "Marla, to celebrate the fact that you're all right, I've made your favourite meal, spaghetti and meatballs," Mum said. I felt queasy. I really craved something else. Mum, I asked, "do you have any of that tuna casserole left? And how about a big glass of milk?" That shocked my parents. "Are you sure you're okay?" Mum asked. "It's not like you to give up your favourite dinner, especially for leftovers." I had a very restless night. I kept hearing whispers, soft, breathless whispers. Then the whispers became a creepy chant. 9 lives, 9 lives, I will have thy body before I've lived my 9. Thy life is mine, and mine is thine. My eyes darted around the room. No one there, no one except Misty. Was I going nuts? After that, I couldn't sleep at all. I sat straight up in my bed and stared at Misty as she slept. Had she really spoken? The next day at the swim club, I stayed as far as I could away from the water. Instead, I joined a volleyball game on the back lawn. I'm not a great volleyball player, but I managed to spike the ball hard enough to earn my team the winning point. After the game, Sarah and Melissa, 2 girls from my team, asked me to go to the snack bar for ice cream. "You're a pretty good player," Sarah said. She twirled her ponytail around her finger. "We've got a volleyball team at school. You should join. What grade are you going into?" 6, I replied shyly. "Oh, I thought you were older. We're in junior high," Melissa said. "Mouse!" Sarah cried. She jumped up onto the wooden picnic table. I saw the little grey creature scurry by. Melissa leaped up next to Sarah. I didn't join them. I crouched down on the ground and pounced on it. "Gotcha!" I cried. I picked up the wriggling mouse by the tail and held it up. Melissa and Sarah stared at me in horror. "Yuck!" Sarah cried. "That's so gross. Get that thing away from me." "Ew." Melissa turned her head away from me. "Marla, why did you do that?" The mouse thrashed about in my hand. I tossed it into the nearby bushes. Why did I do that? I asked myself. I hate mice. Any other day, I'd have been up there on the table with Melissa and Sarah. Instead, I acted really stupid in front of 2 junior high girls. I acted like a real jerk. I acted absolutely cat-like. Thy life is mine and mine is thine. It was all becoming clear to me. Now I knew why I was so afraid of water, why I had a sudden craving for tuna casserole, why I found it so easy to pounce on a mouse. Misty had just about taken over my mind, and little by little she was taking over my body. I'll have thy body before I've lived my 9. Misty didn't want to share a body with me. She wanted my body all to herself. I needed a plan. I needed to fight back. I had to get rid of Misty before she got rid of me. I raced home and grabbed Misty by the collar. "We're going for a little ride," I said, trying not to frighten her. Then I placed Misty in a basket in the front of my bike and pedalled off to the local animal shelter in town. "Don't worry, miss," the man at the shelter said. "We're sure to find a nice home for a pretty cat like this." I watched as he tied a name tag around Misty's neck and placed her in a large cage with other cats. Then I biked home. For the first time in days, I felt relaxed, happy. What a relief. I had done it. I had gotten rid of Misty and saved my life. I parked my bike on the side of our garage. I glanced towards the house and gasped. A black cat with deep green eyes stood on the porch. No, I told myself, it can't be Misty. It just can't. I locked Misty up in a shelter a mile away. My legs trembled as I walked over to the porch. I lifted the tag on the cat's neck and read it. Misty. It was Misty. But how did she get home? How? I feared going to sleep that night. What would Misty do to me? I lay there, staring into the darkness. Then I heard that same horrifying, breathless voice whispering ever so softly in my ear. 9 lives, 9 lives. I will have thy body before I've lived my 9. Thy life is mine, and mine is thine. That was enough to keep me awake for a long, long time. Just before dawn, I shoved Misty into a cat carrier and sneaked out of the house. The carrier had a heavy lock. It could only be opened from the outside with a key. No way Misty could escape this time, I told myself. I strapped the carrier to my handlebars and rode through the grey morning to the bus station. The time had come for Misty to take a trip across the country. We reached the station about half an hour before the bus was scheduled to leave. I watched the morning sun come up and over the little town. Suddenly, I felt so thirsty. I set the cat carrier down on the sidewalk and hurried to the soda machine. I had just dropped 2 quarters into the machine when I heard the deafening screech. The screech of brakes, a shrill cry. I spun around in time to see a big red truck squeal to a stop. The driver leaped out of the cab. His face was bright red. "Was that your cat?" he called to me. I ran over to him, my heart pounding. I didn't see her until it was too late, the truck driver told me. I'm so sorry, really. Why did you let her walk in the street? I opened my mouth to reply, but no words came out. How had Misty escaped from the carrier? How had she broken the lock and climbed out of the case? I really didn't care. Misty was dead. Dead and gone. I wasn't exactly sorry. That night, I slept soundly, peacefully, for the first time in days. I pulled the covers up high and snuggled my head into the soft pillow. I'm sure I had a smile on my face as I drifted to sleep. The smile faded when I heard the whispers. I sat up with a shiver and listened to the soft chant of the word. 8 lives left. I will have thy body before I live my 9. Thy life is mine, and mine is thine. Just kidding, guys. It's just me. Hey, look, if you are after more chills, thrills, and... Did I mention chills? Please subscribe to the Leftovers channel. I'll be doing a whole bunch more super spooky material, especially the Goosebumps book reading. I've tracked down every single one of those 10 tales to give you goosebumps, and I will be reading each story. So subscribe, hit that little bell icon so you can keep getting notified. You know how the system works. And yeah, tune in next time for some more Leftovers from the Leftover Culture Review.